2025 was a headline-driven year for the cryptocurrency space, from Bitcoin hitting a fresh all-time high in October to companies like Circle, Bullish, and 21 Capital listing here on the New York Stock Exchange. Joining me now with more about the biggest headlines and what the new year has in store is Edward Woodford, founder and CEO of Zerohash. Edward, great to see you on the show this morning, joining us from Chicago and the Midwest. And what would you say, as we look to round out 2025, was the biggest story across the digital asset space?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen is an enormous adoption from an institutional marketplace. Obviously, we saw the passage of the Genius Act, which obviously has opened up stablecoins as, I think, the fastest moving payment rail globally. And then you've seen banks enter the space in a really material way. For example, we've seen Morgan Stanley announced with Zerohash their partnership to announce wealth access to their clients with crypto. So we're seeing an enormous acceleration across both stablecoins, tokenization, and crypto trading across the globe. And I think that's partly due to regulation, clarity, leading to acceleration for all types of institutions.
We've seen a rise in stablecoin popularity this year, which did include Circle's IPO in June on the stock exchange. What is driving this development?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really the growth of the network effect of stablecoins. Stablecoins are now pretty much accessible to anyone in the globe. If you look at Revolut in Europe, if you look at Nubank in Brazil, if you look at here in the United States, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, stablecoins are now a global phenomenon where you can access this as a two-sided marketplace, a two-sided network. And that's leading to a huge acceleration. So what that means is, for example, if you want to fund your brokerage account like Interactive Brokers or Kalshi or Tasty Trade, you can now do so 24/7, 365 through an existing account that you already have. And those are some of the use cases that we're powering, that you can, for example, fund your Kalshi account on a Sunday morning through stablecoins, through an account that you already have. So for me, what's really taken place over the last 2 years is just the distribution of this technology. That has been the massive step function. Obviously, you've seen the passage of Genius that is still being implemented. That will be implemented in 2026. I think that will be a further step function, that stablecoins will become more accessible through effectively every financial account to everyone globally.
How do you believe regulatory clarity is unlocking innovation and adoption across the digital asset ecosystem?
Yeah, so regulatory clarity has been critical, right, in the passage of Genius. We've obviously seen MiCA be implemented in Europe, and there is the Clarity Act that is being discussed and has been tabled for next year. Really what it does is it provides the clarity for large institutions to enter the space with confidence. But I think it's not just regulation that is important. We've seen massive amounts of clarity from the OCC, FDIC this year through letters and guidance. We've seen the SEC pull back from a regulation by enforcement mindset that was the case a couple of years ago. And we've seen the pullback of regulation by rulemaking. Earlier this year, and it seems like a long time ago, we saw the overturn of Sub 121, which was a really material accounting principle that effectively prevented publicly traded companies and brokerage firms from entering the crypto space. So it's not just regulation that certainly provides clarity. It also is just the mindset and the sounds and kind of some of these softer ways of influencing what financial institutions can do. And this year has been a massive year in terms of the types of institutions that have come, accelerated their adoption. We've seen groups like Interactive Brokers launch many more assets on their platform. We've seen Morgan Stanley announce the launch of crypto early next year. And so that is a really, really meaningful year for crypto.
Now, the price of Bitcoin is pulled back after hitting a record in October, as we've seen a bit of a rotation in the market and some risk-off appetite of late. What's your projection for Bitcoin in 2026?
Yeah, I think it's always a risky business entering into predictions in this space. You tend to be wrong by a factor. But look, we're long-term bullish on this asset class as a meaningful part of people's portfolio. We are bullish on that. We've been building the space since 2017. And there's a lot of drivers of new demand coming online, which I think is really important. If you look at, for example, the retirement accounts, those will be coming online. There was guidance provided this year. If you look at advisory accounts, those are now possible. So there's a huge amount of access that will accelerate, and the ability to deploy more capital into the space. If you look at some of the guidance that came out from Fidelity, a portion of people's portfolios. So there's a huge opportunity to grow just in the United States. 55 million Americans own crypto today. That's many, many more that will have access through an account, but they haven't bought crypto already. But also just the allocation of high net worth. We're incredibly bullish on high net worth, allocating more. We released a report that stated that if your advisor doesn't offer crypto, people are more likely to leave. And so we view there to be massive buying acceleration in the space.
Edward Woodford, founder and CEO of Zerohash. Edward, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you.